And now we will have a presentation from Dr. Luhana, who is the Secretary General of the World Sindhi Organization. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Hola Kasaka. My presentation today is about the cultural genocide of Sindhi people. Now, first, let me define what is culture. Culture is the intellectual outcome and formation of socialic fabric and outlook of an entire society, and that so that it makes them separate and it makes them unique communities. And this include, there are various components of culture which include, it is language, it is art, it is legends, it is poetry, it is traditions, system of values, dress, legends, and attitudes. For example, French are a separate nation, English are a separate nation, Dutch are a separate nation, Italians are a separate nation, Portuguese and Polish are a separate nation, and likewise, Sindhis are a separate nation. And they have, and why they are a nation? Because they have a unique culture. Now then, what is cultural genocide? Article 7, it is an internationally recognized term, and Article 7 of the 1994 draft of United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People uses the term called cultural genocide, and how it defines it or represents it. That number one, the first and foremost, indigenous people should not be subjected to cultural genocide. They recognized that number of nations, number of communities, number of societies are undergoing that cultural genocide, and therefore this should not carry on, this should stop. And what are the components of that? What they should ensure that the cultural genocide doesn't take place? Number one, their integrity shouldn't be challenged. They should remain as an integrated societies of distinct people, nations, and their cultural values. And they should include that, say, for example, they shouldn't be deprived. They shouldn't be looted of their lands, of their territories or resources. And there shouldn't be population transfers. The reason is, in many areas in the past, what happened, that the people who were the indigenous people, people who were owning of that countries and societies, they were converted into minorities. And also, they should be allowed to practice freely their system, their culture, their language, their system of values, and their history and their rights and their resources. And there shouldn't be administrative measures so that deprive nations and societies of their cultural identification. Now, Sindhi culture, just a brief introduction for many of those who don't know Sindh. Because a culture, what is the age of a culture? The age of the culture is the age of nation. Sindhis are one of the most ancient nations in the world. Sindh is one of the most ancient countries in the world. For example, on left, this is the statue of a dancing girl which was found from Mohenjo-daro, which is a city in Sindh, which is an old ancient city which is spread over 20 kilometers square, and this indicates the aesthetic sense of Sindhi people of the dancing girl. Then in the middle, this is the statue of a priest which is wearing, you can see, a cloth, and that cloth, this statue is anywhere between 5,000 to 7,000 years old, and that cloth we call ajrak. And look at the right, the same cloth, the same pattern is still people in Sindh, they widely wear. So it is the continuity of 7,000 years of Sindhi culture. Of course, culture evolve with time, culture change, but it is a continuity and the consistent factors as well. For example, the first right picture, it shows the seals that were found from, again, Mohenjo-daro. It is a 5,000 to 7,000 year old city, and there was a clear scripture of Sindhi language on these seals. And on the right, the top slide, a picture shows the bath of a swimming pool of that time. So a city in Sindh 5,000 to 7,000 years ago had a swimming pool, and this city, this is one of the really miracles of the world, that it is a city in 20 kilometers square where the houses are brick built, there are straight roads and drainage system. Then on the left bottom, there is Ranikote Fort. And this Ranikote Fort is anywhere between 2,000 to 3,000 years old. And after China, the Great Wall of China, this is the largest wall in anywhere in the world. And on the bottom right is the shrine of Shah Abdul Latif, which is a poet of a universal character, and Sindhi regard him as their guide. And Sindhi people still celebrate their culture. Look at this picture. The woman with these typical cloth, ajrak, they are celebrating their culture. So Sindhi people have got intense sense of loving their culture. Cultural genocide of Sindhi people. But within Pakistan, since the inception of Pakistan, there has been a systematic effort to destroy, to suppress, to eradicate the Sindhi culture. The picture on the top is showing that students of Sindh University, Sindhi students, who are celebrating Sindhi Culture Day with these ajraks that I've shown you, and that was worn by Sindhi people 5,000 to 7,000 years ago, and then the rangers are taking their picture, and the person, the young man in the red circle, he was abducted because he organized this Sindhi Culture Day, and he, since last 5 months, he still remains missing. Now, language is one of the most important component of any culture. Sindhi is one of the ancient languages in the world, and even when in 1843, when Britishers conquered Sindh, within the current Pakistan, the only country, the only area in the current Pakistan that had Sindhi as the medium of instruction was only Sindh. No other part in Pakistan, current Pakistan, has the medium, other medium. Sindhi was the only medium during the British time. And Sindhi, the British officers, they were that's what their obligation, that if they join any service in Sindh, they have to learn Sindhi language. And do you know what happened in 1947? In 1947, when Pakistan was built, the capital of Sindh, Karachi, there was 1,500 Sindhi medium schools. And within 3 months of Pakistan, the Sindhi medium was banned in its capital. Have you heard of this type of thing? Since the Second World War, that type of cultural genocide hasn't happened. Of course, there are a lot of other examples, but the cultural genocide of that level hasn't happened anywhere else. So within 3 months, the 1,500 Sindhi medium schools in its capital, Karachi, they were closed. The Sindhi department in the Sindh University of Karachi University was closed. And then within a couple of years, the Sindh University in Karachi, in its capital, was closed. And this practice of suppressing Sindhi language continues. Still continues till now, because Sindhi language is spoken by 50 million people. And the Sindhi people have made enormous protest, have given enormous sacrifices. A language of 50 million people is still not recognized as an official language. Not only that, see, for example, in India, Sindhi is an official language, a national language. But in Sindh, where it belongs to, and there are 50 million Sindhi speaking people, can you imagine in France, which is of similar size of Sindh, That's people say French is not an official language, but that happens in Sindh. What else is genocide? This is genocide. And what happened when the Sindhi language instructions and medium of instruction was banned? The Sindhi population, so they become alienated, because the relation of people with their culture is through language. They become alienated, and you look at their current situation, they don't know what happens. And what happens at the time of partition, because one of the most important point of cultural genocide is that there shouldn't be immigration to, okay, in the word, people will immigrate. But you just imagine that, say for example, in Italy, Italian people get converted into minority because people say, okay, we have got right to immigrate. No, it shouldn't happen to that extent. In Portugal, Portuguese people become minority. That shouldn't be allowed. And they try to do that. What they did, they forced the indigenous people of Sindh. They coerced them. They frightened them. They rioted against them. They attacked them. It was a systematic, and it is now proven that, and they forced 25% of the population of Sindh to flee. And what happened? This gap of 25% of the population was filled from people from outside who didn't know. And to your surprise, who was the prime minister who became prime minister of Pakistan, he didn't belong to any part which made Pakistan. And when Sindhi people went that, look, this is cruelty. You cannot stop Sindhi language to be taught. Sindh is a civilization. Sindhi has got a very proud to their culture. He laughed, and this is written in the books, this is official. He said, Sindhi is the culture of donkey and camel riders. And this was the guy who didn't belong to any part which made Pakistan, and he was humiliating and laughing at the culture of Sindhi people, who has got one of the most ancient civilization in the world. And they started on a systematic mission of genociding Sindhi people's identity and Sindhi people's culture. This still continues. For example, in literally hundreds of thousands of schools across Sindh, Sindhi is not taught, so that Sindhi people forget their language. And once you forget your language, you forget your culture, you forget your land, and you forget your history. Now, as Sindh is an ancient land, and there are over 1160 or 65 sites of historic significance. There are even prehistoric sites. There were an Italian researcher, and I was reading his book yesterday. He went to a site called Rohari Hills. Rohari Hills is the site where prehistoric, there are large settlements in scores of square kilometers. And they found the tools of these people, huts of these people living, and fossils and all that. And do you know what was happening, what he found, the Italian researcher? That bulldozers were taking this land and was using in construction. And he writes that night, I was crying all night and I didn't know what to do. And he said, I stopped my research proposal and went back to, I said, I do not want to stay in this country, which is destroying this. How will they create that? 30, 40,000 year old settlements of human beings. And this is happening in Sindh. In Sindh, there are 1,100 sites of historical significance, and they lie in ruins. Because Sindh, known in world history, has history of thousands of years, but for them, the history starts from 712, and for them, the history in the past doesn't value for them. So they don't care. The historical sites are crumbling. They'll be ruined. Many have disappeared, and many more will disappear. Now, this is the same mindset that destroyed the Buddhas in Bamiyan. Now you spend the the entire wealth of the world, you cannot create Buddhas of Bamiyan. And this is the same mindset. They're destroying our heritage sites. And then, when we were looking at the definition of a cultural genocide by United Nations, it also includes that the resources and lands of the people, of indigenous people, they shouldn't be deprived of them so that they can sustain. And the resources and lands of Sindh and Sindhi people, they are looted. I mean, it is so ruthlessly. For example, since the inception of Pakistan, 8.3 million to be exact, 8.3 million acres of fertile agricultural land was given to people from outside. While local people, they were suffering under poverty, pain, disease, unemployment, still they give it from outside. They don't care about the local people. All the resources, because Sindh officially produces 70% of wealth of Pakistan, 72% of gas of Pakistan, 55% of oil of Pakistan, 6th largest deposits of coal in Pakistan, of world, 6th largest deposit of coal of world, worth as the conservative estimates are 23 trillion, and Sindhi people is still 75%, this is official. World Food Organization says 70% of Sindhi people, they live below poverty line, and 70% they suffer malnutrition because all our resources and lands are looted so that Sindhi people should perish. Why they want to do it? They want to eradicate identity of Sindhi people. If Sindhi people think they are a nation, they are a people, they are thousands years old, that's their motherland for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. If they have this identity, then they'll ask for their rights. Their rights on their land, their rights on their resources, their rights for the development, and their human rights, and their right to self-determination. And therefore, they want to eradicate Sindhi identity so that they should not demand for that. And therefore, since last 70 years, they have been carrying out this cultural genocide so that Sindhi people forget that this is our motherland, these are our resources, this is our language, this is the culture to be proud of. So what the international community should do? Because if you look at all the procedures and mechanisms of the indigenous people, and even nations, Sindhis are a nation. And then the UN, it is the obligation of UN and international community that they should take the measures to press upon Pakistani government to stop this genocide of Sindhi people. They should recognize Sindhi as a national language, as an official language. And all these historical sites, see, even, for example, you might heard of extinction of a species, if one species lost, it cannot be recreated. Those historical sites that have been destroyed beyond, there are many hundreds which have been destroyed, but still there are hundreds more which can be restored, and it is the duty of international community and UN to force Pakistan to get these restored. Sindhi should be adopted as a medium of instruction in all schools in Sindh. That's our right. And then, currently, this is official, that in the capital of Karachi, Sindh, Karachi, the illegal immigrants, this is official. They say 4 million are illegal immigrants in one city. We believe that the illegal immigrants are 10 million people. They are bringing a lot of contradictions and conflicts, and it is systematic so that Pakistan government is helping them so to convert Sindhis into minority. So we lose our historical right on our motherland. This should stop. As the Italians should not be converted to minority in their motherland, the Portuguese shouldn't be converted into minority in their motherland, French shouldn't be likewise, Sindhis should not be converted, and all these systematic designs should be stopped, and the illegal immigrants should be sent back, which Pakistan government is recognizing. I hope with all your support, we will able, if not today, then tomorrow, we will be able to stop this cultural genocide, which is cruel and ruthless and shouldn't be carried out. Thank you very much.